Three, two, one.
Welcome to Queen Stage. We're here to spotlight the athletes, stories, and action in women's cycling, giving the sport the attention it deserves. And we're going to do so with the quality, depth, and personality the sport demands.
I'm Rosael Torres Davis.
I'm Betsy Welch.
I'm Anna Maria Roque.
And I'm Molly Herford. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Queen Stage Women's Cycling Podcast, where we are all about the women's race. Before we dig in, make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen to podcasts. And of course, leave us a 5-star rating and review because we're back and we're going to be coming at you with some really cool stuff this month. Before we get started, huge thanks to Ruckus Composites for making the show a reality. Built on a mission to push the boundaries of carbon fiber performance, Ruckus Composites and Aerospace are leaders in engineering, research, repair, and inspection. All right, let's get into it. I'm Molly Herford. I'm here with Rosael Torres Davis, who was on the ground, or rather in the moto, at the first women's race at the Maryland Cycling Classic. Okay, Rosael, you were there. What's kind of your first impression, first overall vibe of how this inaugural women's race went?
Yeah, so first of all, I wish I was in the moto. I was in the caravan, but in one of the cars with the Shimano neutral support.
I'm gonna count that as a moto.
But you know what?
It's fine.
Yes, there were so many corners on that course. I don't know if you read it. It had 28 corners, so the woman did 4 laps. So yes, I had to take some Dramamine not to throw up in the car, and it took like a full lap to kick in.
Oh no, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
That's 112 corners, which is like hard enough for the racers, but like to be in, the cars that are just whipping around.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
But no, I mean, I knew it would be a beautiful race because Baltimore is a city that is so pretty, has that old world charm, just like other cities in the East Coast have, like Philadelphia, New York, Boston, etc. I think it ended up looking really, really gorgeous. It had cobbles, it had tons of corners, it had some climbing. I think it turned out to be a really good race. What did you think from the outside?
Honestly, watching your coverage, watching a bit of the live stream, reading about it, seeing all of the team's reactions and stuff, it seemed like a generally really positive cycling experience for North American racing, which is always super exciting to see. I'm always thrilled to see Baltimore in there. You know, they have a lot of some of the iconic road races, iconic cyclocross races. I always fondly remember the one at Druid Hill Park in Baltimore is one of my all-time favorite Charm City cyclocross. So kind of my cyclocross brain can't help but be excited whenever there is a race in an area that has cyclocross. But yeah, it was super cool seeing, a lot of these European racers, a lot of the strong North American squads show up. And it seemed like the racing action was actually pretty racy, pretty intense. That course looked like it had a little bit of everything too. Like,
yeah,
I don't know if we want to quickly recap what that circuit looked like, because I mean, there's cobblestones. There were these steep little climbs. It was pretty cool.
Like, so the race started now downtown near the harbor, by the waterfront, and so it was just gorgeous. They had all the like very old boats and submarines in that the promenade area. But yeah, like straight off the gun, there was cobbles, and the cobbles were serious because again, these are very old cobbles. With very big gaps in between them. And I mean, that's one of the, I don't want to say a downside. I think it's just a characteristic of a city course where it's going to be bumpy, because those roads are used like very heavily. So it was definitely a bumpy course with, lots of manhole covers in other areas, potholes, etc. The city of Baltimore, they did clean the streets and they did repave some sections. But still, like in every city circuit race, you're going to have those bumpy parts. But thankfully, there were not any serious crashes. But yeah, let me just give you like the quick and dirty summary of the race. So I think as expected, because I did a lot of pre-race interviews for the social media team of the Maryland Cycling Classic, everybody agreed that it was going to be a fast race because it was kind of race like a criterium or a kermesse, where they just wanted to thin down the field and they knew they could do it because of all the corners and, like, so it's had a lot of slowing down and then getting back up to speed over and over and over. And that can be very tiring when you don't have the experience or the confidence to stay in the group. We saw that in both the women's and the men's field. So it was very aggressive from the first lap.
Actually, quick question on that. Were they pulling riders? Because it looked like when I looked at the results, like half the field was DNF. So I was wondering if it was like DNF or pulling.
I think a lot of riders just pulled themselves out of the race.
Okay.
Either because they were already just so far back and they understood that being a circuit, they could eventually get caught up. Maybe not by the riders, but, the caravan can be so long. And then it's just a 17 or 18-mile course. So I think that they may have pulled them off. A lot of people have mechanicals and that kind of thing. I saw some serious, there was Galen from Aegis team. She's a cyclist from New York. I don't know if you remember her, but when I lived in New York, I used to race with her in CRCA, Galen Bollard. And she had such a serious hole in her rear tire. So her race was over. But one of her team did amazing. Like this Aegis team that Lauren Steven put together. They did such a good job and they actually got third place. So yeah, let me just really do this quickly. But yeah, it was super fast from the gun. They only really slowed down on the last lap. And it came down to a 4-rider break on the last lap. It was Agnieszka Skalniak of Canyon Cerams on the Crypto, Allison Jackson of EF Education First, Clara Edmond, who's Allison's teammate, and Emma Langley from Aegis, who was Galen's teammate. So Emmond kept trying to get away so that EF had the advantage in that breakaway. And Emmond just kept attacking and working for Jackson. Jackson would counter. Then Langley also threw her own moves in. And it was just attack after attack and nobody was giving an inch. Then when they hit Pratt Street, that's where the finish was. Skalniak was the first one to jump for the sprint, and Jackson came flying alongside her. And for a second, it really looked like Allison Jackson was gonna get it, but she threw her bike a little too early, and Skalniak just timed it perfectly, and she won by a whisker.
Yeah, the finish line photos, you couldn't tell who won, both because of where they were, but also because they were both grinning like they won.
Yes. So I think Skalniak kind of knew that she had won the sprint because, sometimes the riders just have a better sense of that once they're crossing the line. Jackson was definitely a little frustrated, but eventually she went back into her, happy mood that she always had. But yeah, she said she just threw her bike a little bit too early. And then Emma Langley from Aegis, she was just so excited to get third place, especially because she was the one who instigated that break. So it's just such a good, we had 2 World Tour teams taking first and second, but then Aegis was such a small team, but with very small resources, getting there and getting third place with that roster, amazing. So now, Skalniak, she's Polish, the winner. She took the historic first win for this first edition of the Women's Maryland Cycling Classic. Jackson was second place, Langley third. Yeah, I think it was pretty epic. I think the race and the course really delivered. I also heard from other riders that they wish that maybe had been like the previous courses that the men's enjoyed, where it was first along the country roads. They would do a big loop and then they would finish in a circuit in the city. But I think for viewers, this was more exciting because from what I was able to see on the screens that they had around, and then once I was back on the ground for the finish, I was watching on YouTube on my phone, and I thought the city just looked gorgeous. And when you think that most of the cycling fans are not able to be there in person, they're watching from TV, I hope that they had a really good viewing experience because it just looked amazing.
Yeah, and I was kind of scanning some of the comments and stuff afterwards just to see like what the fan vibe was, and it seemed like whether people were there in person or whether they were watching online, everyone was really happy with the coverage, with what they could see. You know, the circuit is really great for people in Baltimore to actually be able to show up and, you know, sit outside on their lawn even and watch the race come by 4 times.
Yeah.
Like that's super cool.
And then there were just a couple of climbs on the course, and I really didn't think they would have that big of an impact in the race, but they did because they took the race so aggressively that every time they went up seminary climb, which is it was just like 8%, but yeah, riders were just off the back lap after lap after lap, like. Yeah, and like good riders, you know, it's like wow. So it was not the Manayunk wall, right? Like in the Philly Cycling Classic, but it did a lot of damage.
And okay, I do want to talk about the sprint because it's funny. I've now been seeing, you know, a lot of quotes from both Skalniak and Jackson kind of talking about how it played out. And this one from Jackson was actually like very funny to me, where she's talking about, she says, she told Cycling News, in the final, their tactic was to not ride, so we rode. It was a fair and square sprint. I was strong. There was just a lot of stuff that I had to manage. I'm not just here to ride around. We put in a good effort. Found that quote to be like a little weird, to be totally honest.
Yeah. I'm not sure what do you think she meant there?
So I'm not sure. And I found it kind of odd because I was like, but you had two people. You were the one that had a lead out in the sprint. So theoretically, she actually would have had the advantage, whether or not EF, you know, worked a fair bit. And I would say like all the coverage I saw, no one was completely sitting in that breakout group. Maybe we missed a lot and EF did have to do a lot more of the work, but there were also two of them. So
yeah. Well, you know, like we don't know a lot about Skalniak, so it maybe just seems like she's better like doing the longer sprint attack. And I think it really just came down to the bike trail, because it was that close. But yeah, that's what happens when we have like this mix of riders. Because it was interesting. We also had the Latin American squads and the local squads from the United States, and yeah, everybody was kind of like eyeing each other, which is really interesting because they usually don't get to race together, the World Tour teams and these teams from this other hemisphere. Mm-hmm. And people were really rooting for the Cuban national champion, Marlise Mejias, who was racing with Virginia's Blue Ridge 2028. Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to point them out actually because I was surprised to not see them higher up. I really had my fingers crossed that they would have been one of the teams that did kind of have one of the smaller teams that had sort of some surprise riders, but I think their top person finished maybe 17.
Yeah, I think Marlise had a mechanical or something happen because she was in the group the whole time, like doing great, and all of a sudden, like, I think then she was off the back and trying to catch up. So I think something must have happened there. But she was definitely one of the favorites. Like, her name was everywhere. And all the European people did the research on her because, it was a course that a crit racer, I think, could have won. Because the elevation wasn't significant. And it was a power course, definitely. Like it reminded me a little bit of Glasgow, the World Championships in 2023, where they finished in the city center with all the cobbles and all that, and all the corners, and that's how Matthew Van Der Poel won, like getting away, and Lotte Kopecky as well. But yeah, no, it was pretty cool, and it was great to see all those squads racing together because what I saw was that the level that we have here. And from teams that came from Mexico, like they can hang on with the World Tour squads because I'm telling you, Canyon SRAM and EF were like throwing everything at them, everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's so cool and so important. And hopefully, I think one of the big hopes with this is that some of those European squads looked at this race and kind of clocked some of these North American and South American racers and Central American racers. Yeah. And are now kind of putting them on their, short list for people they're going to look at for maybe next season. So I think it's a huge like resume builder showcase. that yeah, we haven't gotten to see a lot of those racers actually throw down with some of the top tier teams. So it is very cool.
Yeah, and some of them, like Allison Jackson, is going to the Bucks County Classic
Oh,
today. So,
cool.
like in Doylestown,
Oh, that's really fun.
PA.
That makes me really happy.
That's gonna be, yeah, a lot of the squads are going. They'll be racing there today. So I think the locals are gonna love that and are gonna be surprised. I don't think a lot of them know that they're gonna see all these stars at a local race. So that should be really fun. But like that makes me think the dream is to have the Maryland Cycling Classic continue, have that field continue to grow. I want to see more teams from Europe come. I want to see more teams from Latin America come to race, and then it would be so cool if, for example, the Philadelphia Cycling Classic was back. And then they could hit that up, if they could like have them in the same month, so the riders can stay here a little longer and have a good block of racing. And the other thing is like I also the GP Montreal is also happening soon, but they don't
I'm
have a
so
women's
frustrated
field,
by that. I was going to say that next. I was
right?
like, yeah, there's one in Montreal, then Quebec City. And
Because that's what the men are doing. Then now they go up there, they go to the Bucks County Classic, they go to Canada, and they get a bunch of racing
yeah,
done.
and I mean, that race, like Tadej Pogacar, Wout van Aert, they're coming to it. Like, that's the level those races are. Why do we not have a women's field for that too?
Yeah. No, if they had one, I'd be taking the bus or the train up, which is because also that's a great thing about the East Coast. I was able to take a 1 hour train ride on Amtrak that was affordable and that left me right there. And I walked to my hotel. I took the bus. Like, I never took an Uber, like, or anything like that. It was
Well, and
really
again, for
cool.
women's cycling, when you do have, yeah, teams that are kind of more budget, right? Like you can rent a van and actually do those drives and it's not a huge deal. So yeah, the East Coast and then yeah, up into Canada and Quebec, Ontario, like there's such a good chance for this international racing and it's so disappointing that we don't have more of the women's races, but hopefully the success of this Maryland Cycling Classic women's race means next year some of these races consider bringing it back or starting it up.
Yeah, yeah. Were there any highlights that you saw maybe from Instagram or from the stories you were catching up with?
Actually, one of the stories, I think it was probably you that posted where you had like a little note to put the volume up and then it was just like the crowd cheering. I was going to ask you about how the fans were, and I'll tell you, seeing that gave me goosebumps because
Yeah.
I was so nervous, I'll be honest, that
No, the fans were great. The fans were great. And again, I think that's why like maybe some people don't like a city circuit. They wish it was more of a real road race. But this is so much easier for people to go and watch because Baltimore had a lot going on that weekend. They had a basketball game. They had an Orioles baseball game. There was a concert of Boone or something. I saw a lot of young like teenagers wearing like sparkly stuff and cowboy boots. So sorry, I don't know who this artist is, but like Boone something.
Okay.
Anyway, but there was a lot going on, and then they have an international aquarium. They have all this sightseeing. People can just take the train, fly, drive. Yeah, yeah. There were fans on every road that I saw. They had signs. There were kids. There were so many cute dogs everywhere. There was a guy dressed as a Cookie Monster. I saw somebody else dressed as a chicken. And there were tons of like places to sit outside and have a drink and have the race come by. Yeah, yeah. I mean, those are the advantages of having a circuit like that, that you can stay in the same spot or you can walk around and the racers will come to you.
yeah, exactly. No, I love it. Were there any performances that we should shout out? Like I'm kind of scrolling the results, and one of the ones that kind of stands out to me is in the top 10, 10th actually, is Kenna Pfeiffer, who's just
Yeah.
USA, so like unaffiliated.
So Kenna Pfeiffer, she only got into cycling, I think, last year. She's an inline skater. So we all know that transfers really well. I interviewed her for the social media team, and she was very nice, very for her age, just so mature, and it's very impressive her result because on the first lap she got dropped somehow. I think maybe she had a mechanical or something happened, and I was watching her from the caravan, and I'm like, oh my god, her race is over, like because the speed is just so insane. But no, she worked really hard, and this is not easy because somebody who's that new to be able to manage moving through the caravan to catch back on and then get 10th place with no, like, yeah, that she's a rider to watch, definitely.
Yeah, like that.
And she's a local. She's a Baltimore local.
Oh, so I mean, she might have had a bit of like road knowledge that helped her out
Maybe,
there
yeah,
because
yeah.
I was going to say, well, actually, inline skating definitely would make you better at cornering now that I think about it, because cornering to me is one of when you have a circuit that has, 28 corners per lap.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And, the videos I saw, they're tearing around those corners, like, and they're doing it so well. To do that as a newer rider is terrifying, especially when you're in with world tour level riders who are could do that with their eyes closed and have no problem. But to be a new rider hanging on, again, just so impressive on that front.
Yeah, no, she did talk about that a little bit, how like she said that you actually need more precision in inline skating. So she almost feels like doing those technical aspects are come a little easier on the bike. So
I guess that makes sense. Like slightly thinner wheels or thinner tires.
yeah.
So understandable. Also, like as I'm just kind of scrolling the results, great to see Tiffany Cromwell, that back in there for Canyon SRAM. Like she's always really fun to see. And of course, like Lauren Stevens. Honestly, like I love just seeing some of those riders just in there and shaking things up is always very cool.
Yeah.
Still shocking to me that only 45 people finished the race though, because I think it's literally like half and half. I'm not sure that riders were being pulled. I wouldn't be surprised that for safety reasons, the officials may have pulled some riders, but I think there were a lot of mechanicals. I think that's one of the downsides of having such a bumpy course is that chains were falling all over the place. When you got a puncture on your tire, it was not going to seal on its own. Who was the men's rider that had to like run? Ben Healy had to like run with his bike.
No, Nielsen Powell. Oh my God, that's already a meme. like Chris Froome in the Tour de France.
Look, we love a guy that has to run with his bike.
I have to say he had really good form running. All right, like that was good. And also I have to mention this: Melissa Rowlands, the gravel racer for Liv. So she was racing with the Aegis team, and she was racing on mountain bike shoes, and she also had the big little bottles because they were not sure how the feed zone was going to work out for them. So she just brought her gravel setup for hydration and for her shoes because it's just more comfortable for her. But hey, it worked and her team landed third place. That was very interesting.
I stand by mountain bike shoes. I will forever be a fan of mountain bike shoes on the road. It's just much easier. And like, you know what? I bet you Nielsen Palace was really wishing he had mountain bike shoes on.
Right. He ran for like 100 meters. Yeah. Yeah.
A very long time to run in road shoes. He's very lucky he didn't just like do the splits.
Yes. We're going to see that video pop up like week after week.
Absolutely.
It's so good. It's priceless.
Absolutely. Okay. And was there anything about this race that you would like to see change for next year?
It's just if the city could maybe just continue working on some of the roads and repave them. It's just it costs a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
And cities when these roads get used so heavily, you can repave this year, but then it's going to be bumpy again because it's more like the weight of the vehicles create those undulations on the ground. And that's what the riders were really talking about more than potholes themselves, or there were a lot of manhole covers as well. But yeah, like if they could maybe work on that, and it would be also neat to see other variations of the course, like where they maybe do a bigger circuit and then come back for this one. But as long I really want them to keep this Baltimore Center circuit because it was just very, very beautiful and it made for a very hard race.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think the only other thing I would love to see is really just more of the big teams. Like there were obviously a few of the big teams, EF and Canyon SRAM sort of being the two main ones. But I'd love to see, human powered health. Where are they in there? I would have loved to see that.
Yeah, it would be good to ask them what they need to come, because
Yeah.
I know from having interviewed Joanne Kionowski, who was being the manager for the women's race. They put a lot of money and effort to bring these riders in, and so they're committed in that sense. So it's definitely possible. I do wonder if it's just a thing where they need to have just more races and close in the calendar because it's such a long trip for the riders who are coming from Europe just to go back the next day. It's just a lot for them.
Well, and I guess with World Championships coming up too, you would have a lot of even the American riders that don't want to leave Europe because that's just two huge trips to make in the course of a month. So I can understand that.
Yeah, but it was great to see no big incidents. We were nervous that there would maybe be crashes because of the couple sectors and this and that. But I think the riders did their homework. They did their recons. So that they knew how to handle it. And I heard from other people that it reminded them of some of the city circuits that you see in races in France, or even like a kermesse like you would see in Belgium and Netherlands. So yeah, I think the United States maybe has something there and a lot to deliver and bring to the calendar.
Yeah, and honestly, I loved the combination. Like there were a few photos from it that, they're rallying past this huge ornate church, and that felt very European. But then you'd see like a photo of them riding past the Under Armour like flagship store.
Yeah.
And I kind of love that blend of this very modern city, but also then this very like Euro vibes, like old school thing.
And also there were parts where there was just like abandoned, railroads and like graffiti, and it had, I thought it was very picturesque in that way. And then the brownstones, and it was very nice.
Very excited to see the photos from it for sure. Well, what do you think? Should we wrap there?
Yeah, let's wrap it up. I think people should definitely watch the race. It's available on YouTube and Outside TV. So please, please, please go watch. It was very exciting, like both the women's and the men's race. Like you'll enjoy it a lot.
Yes, and of course, make sure you're following them, following us, of course. But make sure you're following Maryland Cycling Classic. Let them know that you were here for the women's race, because I think the more we can kind of applaud races that are putting the effort in and the money in to bring a women's race, the better the chance that more races will see that and hopefully emulate it. So
definitely, yeah, a lot of fans were there for the women's race. I can tell you that.
I actually would love to see. I feel so bad saying it because I feel bad for the men, but I'm like, I'd love to see a race where all of the fans are like there for the women's finish and then just peace out before the start of the men's. Like, we're over it. Like,
we'll get there one day, but
yeah.
It's okay. We can share. We can be nice. Let's play nice.
All right, make sure you're following along, rate, review, subscribe, all of that, and we will catch you at the next race.